Featuring prominent industry vendors, moderated by an independent analyst, Solutions Review presents the Expert Roundtable, an in-depth panel discussion focused on solving strategic enterprise challenges.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to this Expert Roundtable on modernizing workloads and unifying data governance on Databricks. Today we have assembled a powerhouse panel of professionals from the key enterprise players in a compelling case study, including Copa Airlines, Impetus, and Databricks. Among other things, they will discuss why enterprises are migrating their data warehouse workloads to Databricks to leverage its unified scalable platform that enhances analytics and reduces operational costs. To drive this conversation, we have invited veteran data expert William McKnight, who has advised many of the world's best-known organizations on their use of data and technology. He is a prolific author and a popular keynote speaker and trainer. William leads the McKnight Consulting Group, which provides clients with action plans, architectures, strategies, complete programs, and vendor-neutral tool selection. William, I'm going to turn it over to you now. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Doug, and welcome, everybody. Are you ready for data modernization? Almost everybody out there is on the path somehow towards modernizing their data. It's going to be a stepwise progression. And so we want to share with you some ideas today, some tips across the spectrum of strategy, organization, architecture, and technology to help you modernize your data environment so that you can take advantage of the greatest asset that you have as an enterprise. And that's your data. And a lot of what we're trying to do with data today, get it ready for artificial intelligence. You will definitely hear that come through today. So without further ado, I want to bring in my panel.
Thanks, Willem. Everyone. My name is Sachneet, and I lead the solutions architecture team at Impetus. I've been working with Impetus for over 17 years now, and I've spent the last 10 years specifically working with our customers, helping them modernize their Hadoop platforms, their EDWs, their ETLs, their analytics, their SaaS to modern platforms like Databricks. And in this journey, consolidating, accumulating all of our experience, we've also created a solutions accelerator called LeapLogic, which also is a Databricks Brickbuilder solution. Happy to be here with the great panel.
David.
Thanks, William. My name is David Garcia. I am Director of Software and Data Engineering. I have been working in Copa for 12 years. Since 2020, I started, everything the data teams. I started the migration from, a traditional data waterfall projects to Scrum using agility. And then I started the modernization of the data architecture.
Okay, great. Franco.
Hey, everybody. My name is Franco Patano. I'm with Databricks. I've been with Databricks about almost 6 years now. Before Databricks, I spent over 17 years in industry, practicing data warehousing and BI, just building global data warehouse and BI solutions in various industries. And then, about 7 years ago, I discovered this whole Databricks thing and what they were building with Delta and MLflow. And I was like, well, if you could have all this in one data platform, that sounds like the future. The rest is history. They reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be a solutions architect in Chicago. And now I'm here helping other customers and prospects figure out the value of Databricks.
Oh, great to have you all. Sachneet, what is a reasonable level of modernization that enterprises should have today? You can reference strategy, architecture, organization, or technology.
A very important question. The modernization for enterprises today is very important. They can leverage the elasticity, scalability, and the characteristics and the features of the cloud by modernizing. We have seen enterprises using legacies for decades now, but moving to a cloud strategy is very important to embrace AI, Gen AI, and build those advanced analytical use cases. From a modernization, reasonable level of modernization, I feel the enterprises using or stuck with legacies today should really look forward to a very hybrid cloud strategy, which will provide them a very flexible and scalable architecture and help them move to the Gen AI use cases. At the same time, it will also help them have enhanced data governance and have faster innovation and maintain that competitiveness for themselves.
Okay, well, you hit on a lot of different things there. I want to bring in Franco on that same question, because to many out there, getting on Databricks is part of their modernization strategy. So, Franco, how do you guys define good modernization for your enterprises today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, first off, to address the elephant in the room, I think we started calling it modernization because people were, had some trauma about migration or the term. And really, when we're talking about the modern world, migrating is not kind of the end-all be-all, because you have like all of these things that need to be upgraded or modified or modernized as well. So essentially, what we help customers with is, how can I modernize and figure out what are the most valuable bits that my internal customers are using today? What is the most value out of what we built? Typically, what I'll see is it's all been on premises, and then now we want to get into the cloud. And so everyone's like, well, I don't just want to lift and shift everything into the cloud because I don't know if I'm using everything. And so it's not so much a migration anymore, because I don't think people want to bring the sins of the past into the future, into the cloud, especially since everything is metered, right? You don't want to pay for things you're not using. So that's why I think it's a different approach. And how Databricks helps is we give you the right tools, the array of tools, to be able to determine, am I using this data? Is it relevant? Is it useful? And then we help people modernize into the cloud. So that's why I think it's different. And what is a reasonable level? I would say whatever the business needs. Like that is the most important. Like, what's most reasonable? Is it going to save the business time? Is it going to save them on cost, expenses? Is it going to generate revenue? If any of those are true, it's reasonable, right? If this thing is going to cost money and nobody's going to use it, it's obvious where that ends up. It's on the cutting room floor, right? So that's kind of how we think about things and what's a reasonable level. Does that help?
That helps. I often think about ROI when it comes to really anything that we do, but modernization does provide ROI, but I've often had to bundle it with an existing enterprise goal or strategy, so that we accomplish something for the enterprise at the same time as we level up, maybe to Databricks in the cloud and whatnot. So we are fortunate to have David with us today. And David, you're on that path. You're on that modernization journey there at Copa Airlines. So how do you like what Sachneet and Franco have said about modernization? What tips would you have?
I think it's right, all of the mention. For our case, for example, we start the migration from a traditional data warehouse to a big data, environment, in this case, a lakehouse. One thing that we did that we think that was key, that was create a sandbox environment in cloud and install the new technology, and we start to make testing in comparison with the same condition that we have in our traditional data warehouse. But we made that comparison between, the performance of both tools. We identified that that's, the right solution for us. One thing, that's what's one thing, because we are looking for performance. The other thing was to be able to create machine learning models, and also the real-time analytics. Those 3 points was key for us, and we discovered in that sandbox environment that Databricks was the solution that we are looking for.
I see. Let's stay on that AI and ML theme that you brought up there, because a lot of the viewers they want to do more in this area, and you're doing some things now with Databricks in this area. Can you tell us a little bit more about your ability now to innovate with AI now that you have done some level of modernization in your environment?
I think in our case, Copa has all of the analytics team is a federated organization. That's when the analytics team are inside the business. In technology, we have all, the platform and the data engineering. With this new technology, available for everybody, that we have an explosion of create new models and new innovation using, standard model that is, out of the box internally in Databricks. Something that, explode and, accelerate the transformation and the innovation inside the company. That is a key factor for us to use the Databricks for that.
Okay. Now, Franco, when it comes to our theme of modernization, what are some of the things that Databricks uniquely helps people with in terms of moving up the modernization chain?
Yeah, I think everyone wants to go towards the shiny ball of AI or Gen AI. What's interesting in Databricks land, we have been doing AI for a very long time. Actually, the core of Databricks, of the reason why the founders built Apache Spark and Delta and MLflow and all these things, is that they knew like 10 years ago that the state of data analytics, data warehousing, and back then I don't think the data lakes were coined a term. They were Hadoop data lakes. They were on-prem, and they saw the state of the ecosystems, and they're like, this is a mess. I think the original kind of thing that how Spark happened was the Netflix prize. They basically were trying to compete on the Netflix prize all those like last decade. And what's interesting is that they won, that they submitted, I think it was 10 minutes too late. And they got the same score as the winner. They just submitted it later. Which was interesting is that they basically created a tech stack that solved all of these problems of how do you do big data, ML, and AI really, really fast to drive business outcomes? How can you give a better recommendation score on Netflix to engage your audience? These are like real business problems that if you can automate it, that has real value to it. And so what we see, obviously one of my talk tracks is around everybody wants to do Gen AI. Nobody wants to look at the quality of their data or manage their data pipelines or do ETL in the modern era, right? There's a lot of modernization that has to happen before we can play those games, right? And a lot of the tech in the Silicon Valley tech elites did this. My go-to example is Google and Meta generated something like $3 billion in ad revenue last year. That's how did they do that? They do that by implementing AI into marketing strategies, right? To build better outcomes. So the capabilities are there, and customers are now, since Gen AI kind of blew up the world, everyone's interested. They want to get in the AI game, and we help them modernize their platforms, their pipelines in order to play in that space.
I see. I didn't know that story about the origin there of Databricks. That's pretty fascinating. Sachini, you guys at Impetus have helped a lot of companies modernize to Databricks. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those journeys and particularly what maybe some of the common challenges are when you do this?
Well, absolutely, William. So, see, when it comes to the modernization, and especially we're talking about legacies around EDW, ETL, SaaS, or analytics that has been running for decades. Some of the common challenges include, managing these large-scale data transformations. Ensuring the data consistencies while you migrate from those legacies to the modern platform of Databricks. Handling complexity of the workloads. Also minimizing the business as usual and the downtimes. And also addressing all the security and the governance issues during the migration process. Whenever we look at any such large-scale modernization, some of the repetitive questions that we got from our customers was, first, what do they do with all the business logic that they have written across all these decades on the EDW and ETL? Do they just throw it away, or is there a way, an innovative way to transform it to the new platform? They don't want to lose the business logic, but that code was written for legacy. So how do they optimize and transform that? Secondly, is it going to take them 6 months, a year, or a 2 year? What are they getting into? So they would not like to move ahead with such large scale migrations on guesstimates. And thirdly, while they do this modernization, there would be some innovation, new use cases coming in. So how do they handle the business as usual while they move towards the modern platform. So these are some of the common challenges, William, that we have seen. And through our LeapLogic methodology, we have tried to solve all of those.
Great. Well, certainly your experience comes through in being able to establish the timeline for such a move, because you're right, enterprises, they do want to know how long it's going to take and what it's going to look like at the end. Now, some of what it's going to look like with Databricks, I know it's using that Unity Catalog. That is a grand innovation of Databricks. And Franco, I'd like to bring you back in and tell us a little bit about the Unity Catalog.
Thanks, William. First off, I want to say Unity Catalog is amazing. I want to address something, though, first. We knew, I think the industry knows, and we knew at Databricks that the Hive Metastore had problems a decade ago. To me, as the warehouse person, as one of the loudest warehouse persons at Databricks, I've been complaining about Hive since I got here. And so part of me is like, yeah, we should have done Unity Catalog like 8 years ago. Like, why didn't we do this? It's amazing. And essentially, if you think about like your data platform, if you don't have data governance is table stakes. If your data is not secure, well-governed, if you can't comply with SOC 2 compliance of like having the proper access controls, and if you can't have all that, what good is your data platform, right? What people really appreciate about how we implemented Unity Catalog at Databricks is that all of the things that typically you would have to add on, it just comes with by default in Unity Catalog. So some of those critical ones, yeah, you have to have permissions controls, right? You have to have row and column level security. You have to have groups and manage permissions. But then also we automatically track lineage. Anytime we have this thing called the lineage service inside of Databricks, any compute inside of Databricks does a transformation, it gets logged to lineage service in the Unity Catalog. So you know exactly from the file that gets dropped in the volume in Unity Catalog all the way to where it ends up in the dashboard, you can track the end-to-end lineage. And that just comes with. There's nothing to update. There's nothing to keep track of. Like it automatically updates itself. And then you add a lot of the data usability features, kind of like what I call data understanding. We have the visual entity relationship diagram, the ERD, just pop up. If you define the primary key, foreign key, we'll just visualize it for you. Usually you have to buy another product to do that. Usually you'd have to buy another product to do lineage as well, right? And so when we came to the table not only did we fix, which in my words, this is not Databricks' point of view, this is my words, fix the mess of the Hive Metastore as an industry, because now we open source Unity Catalog, right? So as an industry, we can move beyond the Hive Metastore, but really it's table stakes for these enterprises. You cannot, like David will say, right? We couldn't do anything without Unity Catalog, right? Like you have to have the governance. It's the first thing that they thought of, but then you add on all the freebies that we've just been tacking onto it. It just becomes a no-brainer. It's like, oh, okay, we're just going to use it.
I see. Well, lineage is a very important part of governance. And David, at COPA, how have you dealt with governance issues, and have you implemented Unity Catalog for them?
Yes, I mean, when we started with our traditional data warehouse, we never implemented data governance at that time. So we are starting from scratch right now with this migration. But one thing that I want to highlight is how easy is implementing data governance with Unity Catalog. So it's an integration, really it's integration with the Active Directory, and we can, define who can access the data, who can see, who cannot see. For example, in our case, the airline industries are really high regulated industry, so we have to be in compliance with GDPR, PII, many regulations. And the Unity Catalog was an easy solution for us in order to implement the governance.
Okay, great. That's great to know. I've been thinking Unity Catalog is a very important feature of Databricks. I don't know if it's fully mandated yet or not, but most of our Databricks customers are definitely moving that way. Now, Sachini, as the advisor here to COPA, you have seen how their capabilities have grown. Well, from your perspective, how has Databricks and Impetus impacted their ability to innovate with AI and machine learning models?
When it comes to the modernization part that Impetus has been helping Coupa, right? David had already spoken about some of the motivations they had for modernization. They were using a legacy EDW, right, which was constrained, and then you're also limited to when it comes to the scalability, creating new use cases, as well as innovating on AI and Apple, and moving to that more futuristic architecture, right? So this is where they had already chosen Databricks for all its great features, and since it was the platform that would help them achieve all the long and short-term goals that they have. When it comes to the modernization piece, this is where we've been helping Coupa with our Brickbuilder solution, which is called LeapLogic. When it comes to migrating a warehouse that has been there for quite some time, to understand its complexities, how complex the business logic is, and helping Coupa, unravel the complexities, the technical debt, and while taking them to the new platform is where LeapLogic and Impetus really helped. We did a very detailed assessment for Coupa, brought out the technical debts that were contained. We brought out the complexities that existed, and also created a roadmap of how the modernization would look like, how this business logic would be transformed to the Databricks platform, ensuring that the performance is intact, the business SLAs are met, and at the same time, they move to a platform where they could now innovate. They could move ahead with advanced analytics, AI, and Gen AI as future use cases. So we've been helping Coupa in that modernization journey.
So you said the Gen AI initiatives, but some others you mentioned there as well, right? Okay, I'm going to come back to David then. So David, tell us about how all this modernization with Databricks and Impetus, with how their LeapLogic, help get you there. And can you tell us about, where are you now in terms of your ability to make decisions and innovate at Coupa Airlines?
LeapLogic, one thing that I want to put in context, our strategy is to have a data architecture agnostic, no vendor blocking. No? And with LeapLogic, one of the advantages, we can convert our code from, SSIS, our internal EDW code or language to Python Spark. That could be run in any cloud. That gives us more power in the negotiation when we want to maybe consolidate all of our assets in only one cloud, or that was a really good result that we reached with LeapLogic conversion. Was a really good advantage. And right now we have some code on production. Databricks is on production right now. We are on the migration that we have to spend at least 6 months to complete everything. But we are in our way to migrate everything, like 99 jobs that we have to migrate from SSIS to Python Spark. We are we are in the way to migrate that.
99 jobs. Okay. All right. Well, let me come back to Sachini to say a little bit more about LeapLogic. Now, LeapLogic is well developed. There's a lot of science in it by now, help companies modernize. But what are some of the principles behind LeapLogic that we can all enjoy that help us in our modernization journey, whether we're using LeapLogic or not? What should we keep in mind?
Oh, absolutely, William. So I'd like to start with why we came up with LeapLogic and why we created LeapLogic, William. While we started helping our customers on modernization, we also started with throwing bodies at it. And we soon realized that that's not the way forward. And the reason is that we are migrating from one world to another. The business logic remains intact, but then the innovation, the optimization, the characteristics, the features are all different. And we need to ensure not just the business logic is intact, but we need to ensure that the code is standardized, the code is optimized, the code is manageable, and we cannot spend 3 years, 5 years in a modernization. We defeat the purpose of modernization in that case. So there has to be an automation built, which will ensure that we have standardization, we have optimization, and we have acceleration while ensuring reliability of that modernization. So with LeapLogic, which is a Brickbuilder solution, our methodology is that we start with a modernization where we provide our customers expert strategy, the architecture, and a very seamless execution of that modernization, which ensures that, so we follow a 4-step methodology, William. What we start with is something we call a detailed assessment, because we believe that laying a strong foundation is very important for a successful modernization journey. And assessment helps us look into the complexities of the existing system, identify the technical debts, and come up with that very refined, very educated architecture recommendations, optimization recommendations, and also timelines. And also, since our motive is not to do everything manual, but bring acceleration. And this is where we also ensure that after the assessment, where we will build the migration plan, the target architecture, and when we move to the transformation phase, we are doing things with a lot of automation, and the automation is up to the extent of up to 95%, which means the tool will do a lot of auto transformation, ensuring standardization, optimization, and there's very minimal manual intervention. Now, transformation is one piece. I mean, this is where the magic happens. But at the same time, we give equal importance to the validation phase, validation of the data, as well as validation of the business logic. As David said, there were SSIS, there was Teradata. We may be converting SSIS to Databricks code. We need to ensure that we are transformed, but at the same time, we have also validated each and every piece of data. So first step being assessment, second step being transformation, third step being validation, where we do as granular as cell-by-cell validation of data, and every piece of business logic is validated. But we are not just into the business of transforming the code, throwing it at the customer and saying a goodbye. We ensure that it is also operationalized, which means any support that is required for maybe the parallel runs, the production deployment, for the customer to do parallel runs and compare the two systems and have the confidence before they do the cutover, is part of our strategy. So this is how we own the end-to-end modernization, ensuring that success the customer is looking for.
I heard a lot of automation in there. It sounds like that's really important to you. And exactly. I'm sure it helps keep your clients on their timelines, helps keep them doing a timely modernization, because as we all know, things have to happen pretty rapidly. We have to continue to show results on a regular basis for anything.
Absolutely. And William, I'd just like to add one more thing, that the way we approach modernizations, we do that in a very fixed bid and a fixed timeline manner. So the customer gets the confidence. We tell the customer, we're going to modernize you. We're going to take you to the Databricks platform and ensure the success in 3 months or 5 months. We won't go beyond that. So that's the confidence that we give the customer while we start on the modernization.
That takes confidence. You're either very well developed with this, or you're very brave.
We are well developed.
Okay. Now, Franco, you've obviously been a part of many migrations to Databricks, as part of different enterprises' modernization journey. What tips do you have for our viewers today in terms of their modernization journey to Databricks?
There's a lot of preconceived notions that there comes with migration strategies, because at the end of the day, that's what is happening, even though, we are modernizing in order to do new use cases. And so a lot of people get caught up with how they've happened in the past. Because let's get serious here, migrations is a 4-letter word in some circles. Like, they're long, they're not costly. Why does Sachin feel compelled to explain the fixed bid nature? Because these things have gone on for long periods of times. People are unhappy, and we're very, very concerned about how these migrations are going to go, right? But I would say the big tips I have is don't boil the ocean. When we're thinking about modernization at Databricks, one of the things that I really like about how we approach things is that it's not a one size fits all. One thing that I've learned is that there is no cookie cutter modernization or migration for any customer. Everyone is bespoke. We can do our best to create these technologies to automate or use AI to make as much of it as frictionless as possible. I got to tell you, however confident I've been, I've always been slapped in the face. But some weird one thing that some consultant did years ago, that's like, oh, now we're going to have to figure out a way around this, right? So I would say the reason, what I've been talking to customers with recently is let's look at identifying all of your assets and if they're being used. So with Databricks, we offer ingestion, with partners like LeapLogic and Impetus' platform. But we offer options. You can federate to the existing systems, you can ingest from those systems, or you can stream from those systems, depending upon what your future architecture, the modern future architecture will look like. And what that offers, the federation step actually allows you to connect to data where it exists today without actually moving it and seeing if it's useful. And what I'm seeing a lot of customers are doing is they're actually federating to the old system. And because these systems are typically on-prem, some are cloud-based, but typically we're talking on-prem, investments have not been made over the past few years, right? Like no one's pouring money into on-prem. And thus these servers, the hardware, they've been going past life. And now they're redlining, they're at 90s percentile being used, and there's no more capacity, right? What we're seeing is customers federate to on-prem, materialize a cloud version of that data that's constantly kept up to date using a technology that we have at Databricks called materialized views. And then essentially, they will point all their BI or their consumers to now the Databricks copy. And remember, we said we automatically track lineage in UC, right? We already automatically track consumption. We emit all of this metadata about what's going on. Now we can see exactly down to the column level, who's consuming what out of these warehouses, right? How popular are these data sources? And all of a sudden, customers have access to this data that they've never had before. I have utilization and consumption data in a nice, clean, organized way of who consumes what. And now it helps them prioritize the modernization. It's like, oh, these are our most popular data sources. We got to do these first. I found one customer, they found that 50% of their pipelines that they paid for were not being consumed by anybody. They were just not being consumed, no utilization. They basically cut their migration in half. They're like, well, we're not going to migrate the unused parts, right? Like that's going to stay in the previous system. So my tips are, don't feel like the modern day modernization is the migration of, I was going to say like your dad's migration, but let's get serious here. Like we've all done migrations in our careers at this point, right? Like we've done them in the past 10, 20 years. Don't think that this is the same migration from a decade or two ago. We have a completely different set of tools with like Impetus and LeapLogic and AI and all of these automation, right? Automation and AI has completely changed the game. I think that you need to bring a different mindset to the table. And if you do that, I think you're going to have really good outcomes. Definitely one thing that I feel passionately about, and I actually hear customers, when I tell them this, they're like, I feel that way too. People don't want to lift and shift. They think that that is not the right way to go about a cloud modernization. I would say that anyone who is just trying to say lift and shift everything into the cloud doesn't have the best interests at heart. So I would say stay right away from a lift and shift, because that's where, you're just basically taking everything from on-prem and dumping it into the cloud. Doing that on-prem, actually, there's a couple of things that I find customers trip on. On-prem, you own the hardware, you own the network, you have unlimited use of the software. It doesn't matter how efficient your pipelines are. And so pretty egregious things were done in the past. When you put that into the cloud, and now you're paying per bit switched, per compute cycle, and per bit stored, it's a completely different world, right? And a lot of people, they're like, this is the cloud. Once we lifted and shifted, like, this is too expensive. I'm not getting what I thought. And that's like the big thing there. I do not think you should lift and shift into the cloud where it's a metered world. You pay costs for everything versus an unmetered world because it's just a recipe for disaster. Those are a couple of my thoughts.
Oh, those are great thoughts. That was very powerful. So remember, migrations are not like what they were 10 years ago. They're different. There are tools. There are more streamlined methods to get you there to where you want to go. And I like what you said about lift and shift as well. Sometimes with me, though, that can be an elongated conversation and negotiation, I guess, with the client. Sometimes that is what they want to do, but I agree with you. That's not the best. And I like that you have federation as part of this to help bridge that gap. So you're not boiling the ocean, as you said. And I also like what you said about bring on a new use case, because there's going to be stakeholders that don't care much about the migration, the infrastructure, and so on, but they want to see something new out of everything. And there's certainly no shortage of new use cases that can be developed as part of a migration like this to a powerful tool like Databricks. Now, there's going to be other stakeholders that care a lot about the cost of this. So David, of course, there's a cost to modernization, there's a cost to the migration, but afterwards, I think our viewers would like to know where do costs land after that. So what has been your experience at Copa? Should they be expecting some cost benefits when migrating these workloads to Databricks?
Our business case to migrate to Databricks was based on upgrade the old platform and the cost avoidance to upgrade the old platform. That means that if we invest that money in the migration, it give us, the a good number, enough ROI in order to pay the migration process. That was the first thing. The other thing was, potential for innovation, potential to manage, to have real-time analytics, potential to create new models. So explode the data projects inside Copa. So for us, the first driver was cost avoidance, to avoid, to upgrade the old one, and then the potential of to take all of the advantage of Databricks.
I see. Okay. And Sachini, do you want to expand on that with your variety of clients that you've taken to Databricks? So what should our viewers be expecting in terms of cost at that point?
Well, absolutely. Cost is one of the also major factors with them. And but I always like to divide this into tangible and intangible cost savings, to be honest. The way we approach the modernization, absolutely there is an upfront TCO that the customer wants to look at, right? So they may be spending an amount on the legacies, and while we create a cloud architecture on Databricks, they want to see what the costs would look like. So that's a one-to-one comparison, and definitely there are savings there as well, because see, you pay as you use, right? And with serverless, there are more cost savings because you don't have to manage the servers and all that. So there is upfront cost savings there. But at the same time, what we try to emphasize and work with our customers is that this modernization is not just about moving from one technology to another to save some costs. And I started with that there is saving at the first place, but the bigger benefit is that now you are on a platform where you can innovate, right? You can do advanced analytics, you can do AI, Gen AI, and the kind of use cases you would be able to implement and the kind of leverage you can get from there is something is of the greater importance than just comparing the costs or license costs of the legacies to the modern platform.
Absolutely. You're talking about the use cases that are going to set a company apart in the future. You have to be able to do those use cases, that Gen AI, that other forms of AI and machine learning and so on. And you got to be on a great platform like Databricks in order to make that happen. That is great. Now, let me stay with you, Sachini. You have a
quick thing about cost. Just something I want to toss out there. When you're thinking about this, I like a really famous quote from Warren Buffett: "Price is what you pay, value is what you get." A lot of times people will think that Databricks can save on costs, but actually what they really mean is I get more value from the price I pay them. And it's very, very different from a cost takeout. A lot of times, like, people will think, oh, I'll migrate to Databricks and I'll save 30%. It's not just that. It's not that you're going to get what you were paying for before plus. And so how I typically articulate this is in the cloud, you would typically have warehouse plus Airflow plus Calibra for data governance, and you have like all these vendors in the architecture. Well, that's just Databricks. That's Unity Catalog, Workflows, and Databricks, right? So a lot of times, like the TCO cost savings is not off of comparing the warehouse to Databricks. It's actually from optimizing the total cost of ownership from the total architecture, because there's so much value in Databricks. So we often get into discussions about cost savings. I just want to make sure the audience understands the difference between, price is what you pay, value is what you get. Look more at the value that you're getting from the reduced cost, and that is you'll start to see why people appreciate Databricks. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to.
No, that's great.
David, let me add something, because I forgot to mention that is very important. For example, in our previous platform, EDW, the cost per gigabyte was 0.16 cents per gigabyte. Right now, with Databricks, we pay 0.021 cents per gigabyte. So the saving there is huge, So in the past, our main problem was we cannot move data to the warehouse because it was really expensive. Right now, it is really cheap. And also, with the new technology, with the new ETLs, we have more efficiencies. So that means that we can create, a really fast project. For example, we are implementing a real-time analytics right now using Python Spark with Databricks in 3 months. In the past, with using SSIS and Teradata, we have to spend, 6 months, 7 months to have the same capability.
Yeah, and that's a mission-critical application that you're developing there for the company, and you've got to do it. So
exactly,
I say, carve out your project, but of migration and modernization, but include some of those capabilities you're going to have to do, and then you see. Look at the cost of doing it the old way.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the most costly project is the project that you cannot implement. I mean, if you have a core business that you have to provide, for example. Right now, we are monitoring the real time all of the gates and the check-in counter around the Americas. In the previous technology, we couldn't do that because was not able to implement that things. Right now, Copa is more focused on the on-time performance. I have won many times, the best on-time performance in America and in the world. For Copa, it's really important that because the business model is more focused to executives that are traveling, to make business. So for us, it is a really important outcome for this project to have that kind of data in near real time, for example.
That's great. I think we're hearing a very important recurring theme here. It's just all about competitiveness. You have to modernize these days for competitiveness. Now, let me change gears just a little bit. Back to Sachini, you have this Impetus Unity Catalog Migration Accelerator. I wanted to be sure you had a minute to talk about that as part of these migrations and how they ensure zero business disruption.
Sure. So this is another Brickbuilder solution, William. And the objective behind creating this accelerator was that we wanted to ensure zero disruption to the business as usual while we migrate our customers from using Hive Metastore to Unity Catalog for improved governance and security. And the way this accelerator works is that it ensures zero business disruption by automating the schema migrations, metadata handling, and ensuring that any data governance that they have established currently is seamlessly migrated to the Unity Catalog, while ensuring that there is all compatibility and consistency across the environments that are upgraded. So the objective of this accelerator is, just like LeapLogic helps in modernizing the legacies to the Databricks platform, the Unity Catalog Migration Accelerator ensures that it seamlessly upgrades our customers to using Unity Catalog with minimum downtimes and minimal operational risks during those migrations. We've helped our customers leverage Unity Catalog this way while there was no downtime or no business disruption what they were already doing on Databricks.
No downtime, no business disruption. is what you're saying.
Yes.
That's great. That's an important part of it. Great. So David, you couldn't help yourself earlier. You were telling us about all these benefits that you're getting from your modernization, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about some of those benefits that you're getting in terms of maybe performance or data ingestion or integration or analytics. Any areas there that you would like to share?
I mean, one of the challenges that we were facing in the past, that we have a centralized, EDW. That means all of the analytics team was compete for CPU and memory. So if we had, a rookie analyst that are performing, not optimized queries, that guys can affect the other ones. With the Databricks, we split in different SQL cluster. We assign SQL cluster to different analytics team. That means that we can segregate the teams are using their own, computing. That's a huge benefit for us because we can, maybe people that are working and create revenue for Copa cannot be affected for somebody that is using something for finance. That kind of thing is, this was one benefit that we received from that. The other thing is using the machine learning, that's kind of functionality. We are working right now, for example, in create models to analyze the rates of the price of our competitors and dynamically can decide what is the level of rates that we have for per market. It's something that in the past was maybe impossible to create, but right now with Databricks is more easy to face that kind of problem. And right now we can, make decision in near real time what would be the better rate for the packet, for that specific packet. It's other great benefit that we reach with Databricks.
So some new real-time capabilities I heard there, and the ability to do dynamic pricing, which I know a lot of companies are thinking about out there. So it's good to know that that's enabled there for you. Now, Sachini, we have viewers all across the spectrum of migration and modernization here. Some have started maybe on their own. Some are just thinking about it. At what point should they get Impetus or Databricks involved in that process?
The right time to involve Impetus and Databricks is anyway while they're planning for the migration, because we together can really help them make the right decisions. So ideally, I'll say, planning and the strategy phase, if the enterprise is thinking of modernization and they're planning and strategizing for it, that's the right time to involve Databricks and Impetus. And the reason I say that is because we will bring on board all of our experience of the great modernizations or migrations we have already done for enterprises and help our customers come up with the right strategy for them. The first step is defining the right cloud strategy, then deciding on, and Franco brought in two great points. One was, not doing a lift and shift. That's the way to go, right? Lift and shift does not work, right? And that's a decision that has to be made in early phases, deciding what approach to take for the modernization. And we call that taking a modernized approach, and we follow a 80-20 rule, which means that, 80% of the workloads can be modernized and transformed in a pattern-based approach. Then the 20% may need some re-engineering or re-architecture because they were written for a different world, right? So making that decision is important, and that should be taken in the planning phase itself. The second one is, as Franco also touched upon, right? And what we call as the technical debt. Whatever is running on your warehouse is not the candidate for modernization. We need to identify what needs to be migrated and what needs to be thrown away. And that can only be done through a detailed assessment where we come up with that technical debt and tell them that, hey, this is your active inactive inventory. You have not used these scripts for the last 3 years. You have not used this data for the last 5 years. You don't need to modernize it. and the scope of the migration just gets reduced by up to 50% or 40%, which is great. Now, all these decisions have to be taken in the planning phase itself. And when it comes to the architecture on Databricks, right, how Unity Catalog can help, how the real-time use cases can be implemented by leveraging the features on Databricks, or all the architectural decisions, they have to be taken in the early strategy phase. And this is where I think experts from Databricks who know the platform in and out, and experts from Impetus who have done the modernizations time and again, can really come up, help the customers come up with the right plan, right strategy for them. And I think that's the right way, right time to involve both these experts.
Great. That sounds great. That sounds right. Franco, I wanted to give you the last word on this question in terms of Databricks. Now, I know we don't want to put technology ahead of the business, but at some point, that data warehouse, if you will, the data lake, is a very important part of their modernization. So when do you want to get involved in these migration thoughts?
Definitely, we want to engage with customers to try to figure out what their goals are. A lot of times when I'm talking to folks out there in the field, either prospects, customers, their existing customers looking to kind of get everything off of on-prem and into the cloud, or new people that are discovering their on-prem and they want to get to the cloud, or maybe they even want to start up brand new. Let's just think about the migration steps. I think the very first thing that you should think about is not, I wrote this great blog on, I don't know if y'all remember Charlie Munger, but he one of the talks he gave was he took an absurdist point of view on if, like, normally like they ask him to talk about how to live a great life. And he actually took a flip side. He's like, how to live a life of misery. And I wrote this blog of how to guarantee your architecture will produce bad data. And it's very funny. I try to take an absurdist point of view on it. And one of the core parts is that, you know, you're not really doing things thinking by first principles. You're just doing things because this is the way that it's always been done. And so what I challenge most customers with, and it kind of tosses them for a loop, like when you're thinking about modernizing, don't think we need to do this because that's the way we've always done it, or that's the way that the previous vendor allowed us to do it. That's how we're modernizing. What I actually challenge people with is, what did you really want out of your data platform that you had to negotiate on? Like, what did you really want? How did these things, how were they supposed to work originally? When then you were trying to fit these square pegs and round pegs into these holes with what the previous generation of vendors offered you, right? I would say take that approach to it. Don't think, well, this is how we've always done it, so we just have to take this and modernize. I actually challenge most people with, if you were to design it today, the way that you really wanted it, like what would we be doing? And it's just that mind shift change that for most people, it takes a little bit to get them out of. But I like to start the conversations off with that. And let's talk about what we're trying to deliver. And this always starts with the business. What do they need to accomplish? What goals does the business need to make sure that they can achieve in order to keep the business running? Because a lot of times these decisions are in IT, and I have tons of arguments with IT people, like arguing about tech. No, warehouse is better. No, lakehouse is better. This is why, that is why. It's like, hey, who talked to the business people about how they want to operate? And they're like, huh? Who are they? And it's like, come on now, let's go actually talk to the people who are going to be using the software and figure out what are they really looking for. And this is why I like the approach of having a use case in mind when you're modernizing, because it gives you a target. Like, this is what we want to do. And so that's kind of how I approach these modernizations is, hey, listen, don't just bring things to the table because this is the way we've always done them. Think about what you really wanted and what you kind of had to negotiate with the last gen. And what I end up finding is that the way we've designed things from first principles makes so much sense that customers were like, well, I wish I had that 10 years ago. Like, that's what I really wanted originally. And then I'll give you a great example. Stored procedures. Did the market want stored procedures? No. They wanted cheaper ETL. And it turns out if you take the code off of the expensive ETL tool, put it on the warehouse where the data was co-located along with the compute on-prem, you could save a lot of money. And so the entire industry created stored procedures as a way to save costs on the ETL tool, because let's get serious here, Informatica was ungodly expensive and everyone was trying to cut them out, right? SSIS was okay, but like a whole industry sprouted, and now customers ask me, how do I migrate these stored procedures? Did you really want the stored procedures? No. That's kind of what I was given last generation in order to save costs on the ETL tool. Well, let's think about how we would modernize that. And I actually have a whole blog written about how stored procedures need to stay in the past, because the whole premise about the savings, the cost savings and the performance savings was because compute and storage were tethered together. In the cloud, we've decoupled compute and storage. They just don't make sense anymore. Those are like a couple of examples and how I like to approach the situation. I will say some people aren't ready for the mind shift change. Some people are so ingrained with what they're doing, and that's hard, right? But then sometimes you get people like David here at Copa, and they're willing to challenge the status quo.
Yeah,
that was my thoughts.
I'm going to have to start tracking you, Franco. I really like your thoughts there. And, a lot of the goals of yesteryear have fallen by the wayside. They just weren't that possible, so they forgot about them. Not only that, but the goals have changed. Now with machine learning, you should have so many more goals for your enterprise. So you have to really question, are you ready for that with where you are today? So, and a key takeaway from me that you said there, Franco, don't forget to bring along some new use cases in this migration. So speaking of key takeaways, our last question is about any key takeaways that you may have that we weren't able to bring out so far in the hour. And let's start with you, Sachni.
Well, William, I think we covered great points, and I think David spoke to his experience, and Franco obviously talking about the wisdom of all these modernizations from a Databricks perspective as well. I think the key takeaways, if I have to summarize it from myself and what I would like to convey is, the modernizations are huge efforts. They may turn into a nightmare if they're not planned well, and they may drain the money, they may drain the efforts, and you may be left with nothing if you don't plan them well. It's very important that we plan them better. And and I completely agree with Franco, and it's starting with what your goals are. First, identifying the goals and then trying to strategize to achieve that. And in that journey, you need to rely on something that can really accelerate things for you, to bring that reliability and that consistency to you. So planning the modernizations better is the first step, and then ensuring that you're partnering with the right migration and modernization and the platform partner. I think these are the two key takeaways I would like to summarize for anybody looking at modernization.
And from you, I also got to look for automation in this process.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the part of choosing the right strategy and the approach, the right partner. Somebody throwing bodies at the modernization will never work. We have seen it. And we have also had customers who were bitten by this. They were into those nightmares. We have helped them come out of that. So it's very important that you choose a partner who has that approach, who has that methodology, but very importantly, who has the right tool to do this.
Absolutely. David, your insights from experience have been wonderful here today. Any final key takeaways for our audience?
Yes, one thing is lift and shift is not a good idea, because you will be moving the problem from one side to another.
Good one.
The other thing is to mitigate the risk of this kind of projects, create a sandbox environment, install the new technology, test it, because your own team also can, start to play with the new technology, and you can manage the change of the culture during your teams. The other thing is many people has afraid to using code conversion technology. In this case, you can test it also. You can put your code, test it, convert the code using the technology, running again, and you can, build more confidence starting this kind of journey of migration. So it's something, many people can have different afraid that there are many ways to mitigate the risk or challenges.
I would think good testing would be important to build that confidence in the process. Franco, last word.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody, the audience, you, William, Sachin, David. It's been a great time here. Obviously, lift and shifts are bad from everybody here. One of the funny things that I heard online was it's more like sift and drift. So I kind of agree with that if you want some humor in your day. I would say the biggest thing I want you to come away with is don't let the fears of migrations past influence your decisions today. It's a completely different world. Like Sachin said, there's automation. There's also AI. I'm seeing the culmination of automation and AI handle that 80-20 rule, where 80% we were able to do with automation. AI has been tackling the 20% that we thought was really, really hard. I'm seeing amazing results. So I don't think that you should, bring the fears of the past into the cloud. I think there's better days ahead, but I think we all agree, don't lift and shift, do assets and inventory, track utilization, figure out what the business wants. And if you follow those first principles, I think you'll be pretty successful.
Thank you, Franco. And thank you to my panel. And I hope that everybody out there got some ideas here today to move forward with their modernization. Back to you, Doug.
Yeah, thanks, William. We appreciate it. It was a great discussion. Well, there you have it. We want to thank William McKnight for moderating that panel and all of our expert guests. And of course, your attendance as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.
If your business would like to be featured in a future event, contact us today.